It was supposed to be a short, routine flight. A 3-hour hop from London to Reykjavik. As the passengers of Flight 237 boarded, umbrellas dripping rainwater on the tarmac. Thunder rolled ominously above Heathrow. The clouds that night looked alive, boiling, flickering with flashes of white and violet light. Captain Elias Ward had been flying for 20 years, but even he felt a pang of unease when he saw the weather radar. The storm was a monster, stretching across half the North Atlantic, a pulsing bruise of red and orange. Still, he reassured his co-pilot. Mira. It would clear once they reached cruising altitude. They always did. At 9:47 p.m., Flight 237 took off into the dark, and from the moment the wheels left the ground, the world turned violent. The plane shuddered as if shaken by invisible hands. Lightning flashed every few seconds, illuminating the passengers' pale, frightened faces. A child cried. An old man gripped his armrest, whispering a prayer. "Climbing to 30,000, Mira said, her voice tight with strain. "Hold steady," Elias replied. "Once we break through this layer, it'll smooth out." But the layer never ended. The storm was unlike anything he'd ever seen, impenetrable walls of black cloud spinning in slow, deliberate circles. The radar showed patterns that didn't make sense, shapes forming and dissolving like living things. The lightning no longer came from above or below, but from Asterisk. Inside Asterisk, the clouds, as if the storm itself was alive. Then the instruments began to fail. The altitude reading jumped erratically. 31,000 feet, then 29,000, then 38,000. The compass spun aimlessly. The GPS blinked out. The radio hissed with impenetrable static. "Mayday, this is Flight 237, Elias began, but the transmission cut off. Outside, the sky turned completely black. Not the darkness of night, this was something denser, deeper, as though they had flown into an absolute void. The engines whined higher and higher, screaming in protest. And then, silence. No thunder, no lightning. Just a chilling, absolute stillness. Mira looked out the window and gasped. "Captain, look! Look!" The clouds had vanished. The sky was suddenly clear, but it wasn't the familiar blue of the upper atmosphere. It was a pale metallic color, like sunlight reflected off Mercury. Below them stretched a vast ocean, but it wasn't the Atlantic. The water shimmered in unnatural hues of green, violet, and silver. There were no waves, no land, no horizon. Elias checked his instruments again. Every single gauge read 0. Even the clock had stopped. The passengers began to whisper, their fear turning to a stunned, confused silence. The air grew thick, heavy, like breathing underwater. "Try the radio again," Elias ordered. "Nothing," Mira replied, her voice barely a whisper. "No frequencies. It's all empty. Empty." They circled for hours. What felt like hours. Time didn't seem to move the same way anymore. The sun hung low on the horizon, never setting, never rising, bathing everything in a dull, colorless glow. Then, in the distance, something appeared. Dark spires, rising from the sea like shards of black glass. "Finally," Mira said, a flicker of hope in her voice. But as they descended, they saw it wasn't a city at all. It was a shape, something vast, organic, half-submerged. The spires were ribs. The colossal skeleton of something so enormous it dwarfed their entire 737. Its bones glowed faintly beneath the surface of the alien water, as though it were still alive somewhere deep below. Elias felt his hands tremble on the yoke. "What the hell is this place?" No one answered. But then, the radio crackled. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, a voice came through. It wasn't air traffic control. It was distorted, distant, like an echo played backward. Through the static, one word repeated. "Return." "Return to where?" Mira whispered. "As if in answer." The horizon shifted. The metallic sky began to twist again. The same spiraling motion as the storm. The plane's lights flickered. Alarms blared. They tried to climb, but the engines sputtered. The horizon folded in on itself, and the ocean rose up like a solid wall. The world inverted. For a moment, everything went white. At 3:17 a.m., radar operators at Keflavik Airport picked up a faint signal. It was an old transponder code flight 237. The same flight that had disappeared 27 years earlier. Controllers scrambled jets to intercept. When they reached the coordinates, there was nothing but clear skies and calm ocean. But the pilots reported something strange, a streak of light far above them, like a plane flying directly into the sun. And for a brief second, their radios caught a transmission weak, fading. "This is Flight 237. We made it through the storm." Then, silence. The radar went blank again. Somewhere in a sky that isn't ours, Flight 237 still flies. Its passengers sit in that pale, eternal light, trapped between a forgotten storm and an unknown destination, forever waiting for a landing that will never come. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the unknown. If you enjoy mysteries like this, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories. See you next time.